Recording. Uh, all right. Hi, everybody. I'm Matt. I'm with Other People's Movies, and today we are going to talk about the 1991 Bill Murray, Richard Dreyfuss starring comedy What About Bob? Uh, it's I saw it for the first time. It's a great movie. It's a great movie. I have some mixed feelings about certain aspects of the movie, and we'll get into that. But overall, I think it's a great movie that I've loved ever since I saw it. Sometime, if it wasn't its opening week, and it was its opening week, I saw it in the afternoon on a Saturday afternoon in a movie theater. It was not crowded. I remember at times being the only person laughing in the theater at like 12 years old. Like I remember the scene. I remember being 12 years old and cracking up, and the scene still makes me crack up when I watched it recently. When Bob is hopping on Richard Dreyfuss's back to get him to upchuck the food. I still remember being 12 years old watching that scene and just being the only person in the theater laughing. So I don't know. I don't know. But I've loved that movie. I've loved that movie for years. I grew up watching it few times a year at least, not every day or anything like that. It wasn't quite Goonies level for that or something, but I watched it very frequently. I owned it on Laserdisc when it came out on Laserdisc because I was a Laserdisc collector at a young age. And yeah, I've just the movie's been a big part of me. Feeling I remember when I was a kid feeling I had sympathy for the Bob character. I remember feeling like, oh, this poor guy, he's lonely, he doesn't have a family, he doesn't have, and I felt differently about that today. And we'll talk about that towards the end. But those are my feelings. I was I've had a lot of empathy for Bob when I was a kid. And it was always a funny movie, but there was always this kind of serious undertone to it that I kind of felt when I was a kid that there was something about Bob that was sympathetic. But we'll address that later. And that's my history with What About Bob? What's yours, Ryan?
I saw it in the theater.
Yeah.
I still remember like the theater I saw it at. It was like a smaller, hipper theater in Santa Fe as a kid with I think my parents. But it was definitely not. It was packed.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. It was like very, very packed. And
was it early in its run when you saw it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it would have been, I think, 91 or something,
yeah,
right?
91 is when it came out, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been when I was like a kid.
Yeah.
And definitely remember laughing my ass off at everything. Just because that was like, now when Bill Murray's in something, you're always like, ooh, I wonder what this is going to be, but like now at the time it was just like, oh, Bill Murray's in it. What can go wrong?
Right. So he wasn't doing his Wes Anderson type movies at the time.
Right.
And his Jim Jarmusch movies.
Right. But yeah, I remember laughing my ass off. Him jumping on him, choking him, and then obviously the opposite, him jumping on Bob, trying to wake him up.
Yeah.
I think as a kid were probably my favorite things. Bob, but rewatching it.
Cock-a-doodle-doo!
Cock-a-doodle-doo. But yeah, I mean, rewatching it as an adult, you put it in a different frame. It's like, ultimately this like family 90s comedy, but when you re-examine it, it's like, Jesus, he will not leave him alone. He does not stop.
Yeah.
He shows up he gets his address. He lies about being his sister or gets that lady to pay him. He does
fakes
like
suicide.
Right. He fakes suicide. He does like crazy shit to like psycho shit to get there. He shows up to the town, to the post office, and just starts screaming his name.
Yeah.
And he just happens to be there.
Yeah.
Right. Like
he stands in a diner holding the fish, waiting for the phone call for like hours,
Right. And then screams at someone when they try to go use the payphone.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember loving it. Still love it. Watched it again specifically for this.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah, it's just it gets, you find funny shit the more you watch it.
Yes. Totally.
Yeah.
I watched it last weekend in preparation for this, and I was killing time before we started today. I put it on again today, watched the first 45 minutes or so. I was discovering stuff watching it now, just little exchanges, little glances, something,
Yes.
especially with Richard Dreyfuss's performance. That is a layer. He just does things that are very subtle throughout. We'll get into him in a little bit, but you notice things throughout it that you make new discoveries with it every time you see it.
Right.
Yeah, and that's
cool. I always knew he worked from home. Like when he says, I'm off to work. Bye. Yeah. Then he goes and sits there, and I just didn't realize until I watched it again that he like clocks in.
Yeah.
At his house.
Yeah.
And like I still don't know.
Right. I still don't know what he does. I don't know that we ever learn what he does for a living.
Yeah.
If so, I can't remember.
Yeah. What was your introduction to What About Bob, Robin?
I don't know if I ever saw it in theaters. I think it was probably just on like watching it on a VHS tape or whatever. But I thought it was like hilarious at the time. Like, I'm like not really thinking about it at the time, but it is like a warm family film. The music tone in it, like that Frank Oz like directing of it. And as you were saying, Ryan, like just Bill Murray, like in it, it was just another one of his comedies before he tried to like, make himself like a serious drama actor or whatever, where you get skeptic of like the films he's starring in, But I mean, and I watched it recently as well, and like I'm the exact same way as you, Ryan, where it's just like, that was a family film at the time, but now you're like, my God, this guy is like psycho. Like, why did they let this guy stay near him? Like,
but it works literally because it's Bill Murray.
Yeah,
like, he's so lovable and likable. Like,
even watching it with adult eyes, I'll just get it out of the way now. I feel exactly the way you guys did. I was going to save it for later, but watching the movie now, it's almost shocking how disturbed that character is. I mean, he really is, but the music and the tone of the movie kind of like muffle that. They just you've got this soundtrack that's kind of synthy, and then it evolves into this da 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 da, like these little like, and it just the tone of the movie just it lets you forget that it's that disturbing, that it's this guy who just is he's literally stalking this poor psychiatrist.
Yeah.
I mean, he's literally, and I used to feel bad for that character, but watching it today, I feel much worse for Richard Dreyfuss.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd be going crazy like if I was him. Like,
as narcissistic and pompous as his character is, and unlikable as he is, you feel terrible for him watching it with adult eyes.
Right.
So
what I noticed too, rewatching it, is how the moment Bob shows up, his family just loves him.
Yeah.
They like, hi, Bob. They all have like smiles on their faces. And when they say hi, Bob, when his son meets him, he's just like asking about his fish, and they all just adore him.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know.
Well, one thing about that is like, when they bring him closer to the family, it's like his character almost becomes like he's another kid, a friend over, like a little kid, and he acts like a little kid at the same time.
Well, the mother even
he sort of
says,
changes.
The mother
kids
even
being kids.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's no longer like a person who has like these these conditions. Like he's just a little kid, like, very playful, very fun, like exploring, like, this is the first time I've ever done this. Like,
right.
The fact that like they're in the bedroom together, which is very disturbing, like just cursing
with
out
today's
loud.
eyes, you're just kind of like, well, because Richard Dreyfuss kind of losing his shit over the fact that his son's in there in the other room with Bob, and his wife's just like, oh honey, it's fine, and you're just kind of like, well, listen to him. He's absolutely right.
I know.
He's
It's like,
absolutely right.
how did they ever find that acceptable? I mean,
Yeah.
I'd probably, if this guy was in my house, I'd probably have the whole family sleeping in the same bedroom.
Exactly. Exactly.
He would have called the police by the
Yeah.
time, like 20 minutes into the film. But
Yeah.
Yes.
But you suspend disbelief with that movie. There are many
Right.
things about it where it's just the tone of the movie is just kind of whimsical, kind of not entirely realistic, so you buy it. You know, it's
Right.
you buy that this isn't exactly reality. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I love this movie. I love it.
Me too.
All right. I'm going to do a few little facts about it, and I don't have that much because there's never been like a special edition of this movie with like a director's commentary and like interviews or documentaries. There's just bare bones releases, and I don't think it's ever even been released on Blu-ray. I think it was only released on DVD, and they never went beyond
Jeez.
that. So I don't know. So What About
Yeah,
Bob
yeah.
was released on May 17th, 1991. It was a hit, grossing 63 million domestically based off of a reported and really high for 1991 for a movie like this budget of 39 million. I don't know why it cost so much. I don't know if that's accurate, but that's all I could find. It was written by Tom Schulman, who I just found out also wrote Dead Poets Society. So the guy who wrote What About Bob also wrote Dead Poets Society.
What?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
I'll be damned.
And it was based off of an idea by Alvin Sargent and co-producer Laura Ziskin, directed by Frank Oz. Robin Williams was the first choice to play Bob,
Right.
which he had previously starred in Tom Schulman's script for Dead Poets Society. Due to commitments to the Fisher King, however, he had to turn it down. And yeah, what do you guys think about that? Do you think Williams would have been interesting?
I think so. I mean, obviously, yes, he's not the same as like Bill Murray, but at the same time, like he often plays characters with like sort of like crazy personalities. Like you look at him, like, and I think of his small part in Adventures of Baron Munchausen, but like he's very like crazy, like playing this head floating around, you know, lost from his body and stuff. But I mean, point is like I think he could have done a good job like playing him. It would have been slightly different, but it would have fit along with like a 90s family movie because he was in plenty of them as well, you know.
Yeah. I think What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like for everyone at that time, and for people who can probably get away with playing a psycho, but you love them from the moment you see him.
Yes,
definitely. Like because Robin Williams has done like even like Mrs. Doubtfire, for example, is kind of fucked up.
It really is. It really is. A guy dresses up like a woman to spend more time with his kids.
Right. And it's like lying to his ex-wife's face and stuff. Right. So, yeah, I could see why that, because I initially had, you know, I think you sent out the email of like that I think he had been considered, Robin Williams had been considered for that. My gut reaction was like, what? No. But then it was like, wait, no, for everyone at the time, because I don't know that there were that many like hot Hollywood stars at that moment who could have done that movie specifically.
Yeah.
At least that I can remember.
I have a hard time picturing anybody. Personally, I think Robin Williams would have been great. Robin Williams was great at everything he did. I think he would have possibly even been a little more sympathetic than Bill Murray. I think he would have. Because Robin Williams has that kind of. He has a certain innocence that Bill Murray doesn't quite have, even though Bob is a bit of an innocent character. He's not self-aware with how much harm he's doing to Leo. But I have a hard time personally picturing anybody but Richard Dreyfuss and Bill Murray. I think they both inhabit those roles so perfectly. I have a hard time. And it was I just have a hard time. Woody Allen and Patrick Stewart were considered for
no.
Dr. Leo Marvin. Not Bob, but for Dr. Leo Marvin.
Patrick Stewart is not a comedian, not at all. He would not work for that.
He's funny.
Yeah, but it's not at all the same. And Woody Allen, like, I personally find Woody Allen annoying. Like,
sure.
I don't see him having as much like anger and frustration that Richard Dreyfuss has. I can't really see Woody Allen being like that, you know?
Yeah. Richard Dreyfuss's anger is it is the character, and
right, and like
it's
with
the
Woody
humor
Allen,
of the
you
movie,
can't
or a
see
big part.
you can't see the tension building up in him like Richard Dreyfuss. Like the whole idea that like this guy is stalking him, he's driving him nuts, and that the family like won't listen to him. Basically, like I don't see that Woody Allen playing a character like that.
Yeah, yeah. He wouldn't fight back enough. He would.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Alrighty, and so we did that one. The film was largely shot around Manetta, Virginia. Bill Murray was supposedly frightened to film a few short scenes in New York City. I thought that was a funny story that he was frightened to film in New
I
York.
get the feeling he's making that up. Like he's just being overly dramatic about.
I don't
stuff.
know.
Like,
I mean, I don't know. I'm finding this on IMDb and
yeah,
Wikipedia.
I know, but I'm just like he's done so much stuff in New York
Yeah, that's
City
true.
before.
That's true. That I didn't think of that because he did do Ghostbusters. So forget I said that one. That could be that sounds made up. So forget I said that one. Murray supposedly improvised quite heavily throughout the film. I think you can tell that. There are some some lines he says. Nothing's coming to mind off the top of my head, but there are just certain moments and certain reactions that you can't write. They're just so in the moment.
I mean,
so
the whole like scene of him screaming for Richard Dreyfuss in that town, like when he arrives, like you can tell that's like improvised. And what is it? The me, or whatever.
Gimme, I need.
That seems like something he would have improvised, you know.
That is a perfect example, and that's one of my favorite moments of the movie. Is gimme, I need. That's exactly what he does. That's exactly what he does.
With Richard Dreyfuss telling him when he says, "I'll call you at 4," and Bob says, "We couldn't possibly make it 3:30, could you?" And he says, "Bob," he says, "4's good. It's better. It's better."
Yeah,
he says it's
I can see that. Yeah,
that's the kind of stuff that Bill Murray, you can just tell is very much Bill Murray being himself, and that's part of the magic of the character and part of the movie. Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss did not get along during filming. Like, it went so far that Bill Murray supposedly threw an ashtray at Richard Dreyfuss at one point. Bodyguards supposedly had to be hired to separate the two between takes.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, it sounded like it was bad. And Murray also supposedly threw co-producer Ziskin into a lake because she wouldn't give him a day off. So, I mean, I'm saying this stuff. I hate to, I don't want to like spread gossip, but you hear enough stories the same time that you kind of, I've heard a lot of stories about Bill Murray. He sounds like a difficult guy. I love his work and I will always love his work. He just sounds like a difficult guy. And I think Frank Oz said this. I think in the case of What About Bob, it somewhat helped to the movie. So,
sure.
I think, Bill Murray's difficulties as a person probably translated somewhat into his talent on screen. So
I've heard he's like not good to work with before. And I agree. Like the tension buildup does help it definitely. You know, but sorry, what were you gonna say, Brian?
Well, it just kind of helps that story because in between takes they're obviously not bullshitting about Bears games or something. Like the only time Bob and Dr. Marvin are together in that story is when they are together. And so the only time Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss are talking is with that dialogue. If they weren't getting along in between takes and stuff, like I don't know, it's probably useful because like Bill Murray's hamming up how much they're not, or like, you know, he's just so, I don't know. I see that being helpful. As awkward as it might have been on set.
The movie is the funniest moments of the movie, and granted, the big chunk, the movie is mainly based around Leo and Bob, but the funniest moments of the movie are always a result of those two together and those two reacting off one of another. So, and that it works beautifully for the movie. I hate to support method acting bullshit about, you know, actors. If you don't want to get along on screen, you have to clash off screen. I don't believe in that at all. But it helps. It does. I think it did help in the case of this movie. So The movie is held in high regard today for the most part by those who remember it. It currently holds an 82% critics and 79% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is really high. The problem is, like I was saying earlier, the movie's never had a special edition Blu ray. The movie's not really making best of lists. The movie's not really. People don't talk about it when they talk about Bill Murray's best movies. And I think it's too bad, but this movie, I wouldn't call it underrated. I would call it forgotten. And
Yeah.
why is that? I don't quite have a reason for that, to be honest. Other than maybe it has what to do with what we were saying earlier, that maybe as people who saw it as kids grow up, they kind of are more freaked out by it. So
Maybe, but at the same time, like, with it, like, I can't say that I know like a lot of like Richard Dreyfuss's like, career. So when I think of him, this is the movie I think of,
yeah, this and Jaws.
Yes, yes, Jaws, yes.
And Mr. Holland's Opus.
And
No,
Mr. Holland's Opus.
Yeah.
And I actually, that movie did come to mind, Ryan. So
Same. I saw it at the same theater I saw What About Bob at.
yeah.
So.
Oh, nice.
Mhm.
No, but I mean, I basically think like primarily what I think of with Bill Murray is like Ghostbusters, like,
Yeah.
and then like something like this as well, like, is up there for me. But that's also probably because like this is what I saw as a kid,
Mhm.
These are the movies that I remember. Now I'm an older like person, obviously. Like,
Yeah.
I barely know what he's been in now. Like I just
Right.
generally don't have interest. So from my perspective, that's why I think of this as like one of his more memorable films,
Because you grew up with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ryan?
I know. Forgotten is, I think, true. Like I don't know many people who've actually seen What About Bob.
Yeah.
It's not, and a lot of people, I feel like it's not even like, oh yeah, no, I never saw that one. They just don't know what I'm talking about when I bring it up. So, it didn't. It is. I mean, yeah, forgotten is a better term than underrated or overlooked or whatever. But yeah, I can't even. What else was Richard Dreyfuss in other than Mr.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh right.
Oh yeah.
Postcards from the Edge. He had a bit part in. He's been in a lot of
Wasn't he in
stuff.
the Yonkers
The
movie?
Goodbye Girl. I think that was one of his
Yeah.
classic roles. The Goodbye Girl with Barbara Streisand.
Yeah, and Lost in Yonkers. That's right.
Lost in
Yeah,
Yonkers.
Lost in Yonkers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lost in Yonkers. What did he win the Oscar for Goodbye Girl? I think he did. He won an
Gotcha.
Oscar for something. He is an Oscar winner.
Right.
And
But
he recently made headlines. I don't want to gossip, but he recently.
I know.
Okay,
I know what you're talking about.
I'll
Yeah.
let that go. We don't need to.
People have already heard probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Dr. Leo Marvin is the first person character I think of when I think Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, that's the first movie I ever saw him in.
Me too.
Was
Well,
What About
I saw
Bob?
Jaws. For me, it was Jaws. But
See, I didn't see Jaws till much later on. I knew about
Same
it.
with me. Yeah.
Yeah. Jaws, I grew up watching on TV. It was on TV a lot, but
Right.
Yeah, it was on like TNT or TBS or whatever.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
That's
once
where
a
I saw
week.
it.
yeah, no.
It was.
So let's talk about characters. We've already talked about Bill Murray and Bob quite a bit. I think that, as we said just a second ago, this is one of his best roles. Scrooge, Groundhog's Day, Ghostbusters, Kingpin, Ed Wood, Wes Anderson's movies. This is right up there with those, in my opinion.
Same.
And we talked about what other roles compare. Those are pretty much it. That's what we already said. Anything you guys want to add about Bill Murray, or have you said your piece on him?
I don't.
Anything you guys want to add about Bill Murray, or have we said our piece on him?
In general, or for this, or for
whatever, or for this movie, or for in general.
I think we probably covered it, but yeah, I mean, this was still when he had a little less of an edge to him.
Yeah, no,
you feel like everything nowadays it's like, oh, it's almost like if it's maybe a strange comparison, but if Benicio del Toro shows up in a movie, I'm always like, oh, really?
Yeah.
He does, like, I feel like he's super picky about what he does. And I've heard Bill Murray's kind of this, like, he has that 800 number or whatever the fuck that you have to call him at.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like just apparently he's very elusive. So it is interesting when he shows up in something now. But at the time, like I said, it was just like, oh, it's Bill Murray, you know, the funny.
I like this stuff, and now I get kind of annoyed with him, like, because like he has like a huge following of people, like you know, he'll just like randomly show up to like a bar or something, and everybody's like, oh, Bill Murray, you know, and people stalk him too, like think he's the coolest thing ever, you know.
We get that from living in Chicago.
No, it happens in New York a lot too.
Okay.
In fact, I've heard of this happening more in New York. Like, I mean, like he's like the type of actor that just like he shows up in sort of like cult type of things. Like this one company I worked at, this sort of like hipstery like person wore like a bomber's jacket with Bill Murray from Life Aquatic, like a cartoon, not a cartoon version, but an illustrated version of his face with a David Bowie lightning thing in it. And it's like, what does this mean? Like, I don't get this at all. But the point is that like he's got that kind of following, you know.
Okay.
And he probably has like an ego built from it too, you know.
Yeah, he has a bit of a hipster following these days, and I think that comes a lot from the Wes Anderson, Jim Jarmusch movies.
Yeah, for sure.
He does, so,
yeah.
I mean, love him for his work, not everything else, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
He does. Some friends of mine actually saw him not that long ago and like took some photos with him at it. He just shows up to Cubs games randomly.
Yeah. I've heard many nice stories about him too. I've heard probably just as many nice stories about him as I have heard testy stories about him. So he's a mixed bag like we all are. So
he's very generous with his money, apparently. But you do wonder. I mean, still being generous, but I'm like, was he also just trashed? And it was just like, you know.
No. Richard Dreyfuss, Leo Marvin. We talked about him a lot. We don't have much to say. We commented on his rage throughout the movie. One thing I found interesting while researching was Gene Siskel specifically criticized his anger throughout the movie, and I'm going to give a middle finger to that, because most of the movie's humor derives from Richard Dreyfuss's angry reactions to Bob. Bob wouldn't be funny without Richard Dreyfuss's reactions to it.
Right, for sure.
And he does it so well. The way he get out of the car.
Exactly. That's my favorite moment.
Yes, that kind of stuff. Just
him like walking over to his daughter with his hand behind his back, like in the town, and next thing you know, like the puppet comes up and starts talking. Like, that's great to me.
I love it. Yeah. Just his pomposity, his anger, everything about him. Rich, I can't see anybody else playing this role as well as Richard Dreyfuss does. He just, you can tell that he's in on the joke, and that makes it even more likable, because I don't think he's really like this character. You can tell he's like, there's something very likable about Richard Dreyfuss, but it just goes to show you how brave of an actor he is that he plays such an unlikable character.
Yes.
And, like total really like narcissist, as you were saying before. Like
when
he
Bob
really is. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
When Bob pretends suicide, his reaction is basically, "Let's not let it ruin our vacation." I mean, you know, he's a pretty terrible person when you get down to it. But
you get that idea from like the beginning, the first time they see each other, how like he doesn't start the conversation with Bob. He waits for Bob. And then like how when he's like when he's like, I think I have a book in mind for you. And he looks around and then grabs like his book from the row of
20 books of his own book.
Yeah. It's great.
He really is the villain in it. And it's the one that he's the fact that he's the one who's so rational in it, of like, how are you okay with this?
Yeah.
Is what I kind of forgot about until I rewatched it recently.
Yeah. The
But
movie's in a weird way a celebration of insanity because the one character who is rational is the biggest asshole in the movie.
Right.
He's
Who
the most
goes insane.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's something I forgot about too, is like he goes insane.
Yeah.
The crazy guy drives the sane guy crazy.
Yeah.
And the sane guy cures the crazy guy.
Yeah.
So those little things I noticed throughout is Bob starts to stop using tissues before he touches everything.
Yeah.
There's those little shots of him about to use it, and then he kind of like puts the tissue away. And when he asked the daughter, do a lot of people use this car? And she says, just us. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he puts the tissue away because like this is his like family, strangely kind of, at least for this movie, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Very nice. Yeah. Julie Haggerty Faye, good. She plays it very well. She sometimes, especially as an adult, you're kind of like, what are you thinking? But you believe her. She's got a very warm nature. She's got a very kind of inherent decency to her that is very fitting to the character. She's a very trusting character. She's a very, and you know, she does kind of eventually not turn on Bob, but just towards the end, she's kind of like, you need to give Leo a break, Bob. You need to go. So she does have rationality in her. But yeah, I think she's great for the role. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah. She is. She's got this very motherly, she's great. She's very wholesome, I think is the word I'm looking for. Like a very motherly, almost kind of Midwestern thing to her, even though I think they literally live in New York City, right?
I think so. I think so.
They don't specify where exactly they live. For all you know, they could live in like New Jersey in the suburbs or something.
Yeah,
you know,
no shit. There is a point, where they say go back to New York. They probably live in the suburbs. How could they not?
I think they say, I think they say go back to New York. Yeah.
But she's great. I mean, I can't picture anyone else playing her unless I like went down a Google rabbit hole or something.
Yeah.
But like you said, I did notice again. Oh yeah, at the end, especially when Bob shows up with for he's a jolly good fellow thing.
Bob,
you could
leave.
Yes, you can see it in her eyes. She's just
leave.
Yes. Her face is just like motherfucker. You have to fuck off.
Yeah.
And then of course he blows up their house. Accidentally.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like the her voice is like really good for like this character because it's like soft and light and so friendly, you know, like she's just like you're saying, a wholesome mom like character, you know, and very welcoming to people. Like
yes.
Yeah.
She doesn't have like anger, you know.
No. She's very tolerant of Leo. She's very tolerant of the way Leo snarkily talks to people. She's very understanding of it, and you just kind of read that in her tones and her body language.
Honestly, like it's probably like thinking about this a little bit more, like it's probably her character that keeps her children somewhat sane, you know, like
right. And well, getting on to that,
Leo certainly would not, you know.
Yeah Right.
Can you imagine if your parents like came up to you and held a puppet and started talking to you?
Right. Well, the kids in the movie, and especially Charlie Korsmo, who we're moving on to next as Siggy, I think he's fantastic in the movie. Again, I can't imagine anybody else. And I wouldn't. You just said that that the kids are partially saying, yeah, he's a disturbed little kid, especially when you watch it as an adult. It's like, ooh, what a disturbed little kid. But he was a fantastic child actor. I forgot to do research. I forgot to see I know he teaches somewhere now. He's not
I thought he was like a lawyer or something.
Or something like, I could be wrong. He does something.
I might be wrong too.
Does something complete. I thought he was a teacher. That might be the kid from The Shining though, so I'm not certain.
Oh, okay.
But he doesn't act anymore. He was in a lot of movies I grew up watching and liking a lot.
Hook.
Dick Tracy.
Tracy.
Yeah, Men Don't Leave.
Hook.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
shit.
he was in some really good movies.
Yeah,
But
I
I
think
think,
like his character, like his acting and like what like the script written for him, like like to me that seems very realistic for like what a kid like that would be in that situation. And I say like this because like I've met like throughout my life I've met many people whose parents were like psychiatrists or psychologists and whatnot, and like I think every single one of them has had something like some mental issue. Like I've met two who compulsively would lie about stuff,
yeah,
um and maybe that's just coincidental, but like I've met others who also like have extreme emotional problems or things like that.
yeah,
So anyway, point is that like yeah, this kid who is like depression problems or whatnot, like it makes sense for who his father is, based on who his father is.
right, right, right. Totally. No, you nailed it. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, yeah. Anything you want to add, Ryan? Or
Yeah, I mean he was awesome.
yeah,
He is like they set up pretty early that like he's always wearing black. He takes off the robe and he's still wearing black. He's reminding
Yeah.
I
Bob
mean,
that
that was me as a kid too. So that's
sure.
generally that I'm wearing a gray shirt today, but that's generally me now
Yeah, that's
as well.
generally,
I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, he's reminding Bob like just like grinding, we're going to die. I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Like every time I watch that scene, I like it reminds me like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we all are.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
yeah.
Catherine Irby as Anna, probably the most thankless role of the bunch, but she does it very well. You get a good sense of who the character is. She doesn't get as much screen time as the other characters get. Maybe her
Right.
scene. I don't know if scenes were cut out. I don't know. But she's not that present in the movie. She's not what comes to mind when I think about the movie. But that being said,
Sure.
the scene you brought up, Robin, with the hand puppets, that's a very memorable scene. And she plays it very well. She plays the fed up daughter. You understand why she's so fed up with Richard Dreyfuss's character, why she's fed up with the way he talks to her and all that. It makes sense. It fits well. I don't know. I don't know. Did the
Right.
movie need more of her? Probably not. Honestly, it's too bad for her character that we didn't get to see more of her. But the movie
Right.
is paced pretty darn well the way that it is, and I think anything else would have gotten in the way. And you can't really have Bob sleeping in the same room as a teenage girl. So that would have
Right.
been So that would have probably
Yeah.
been. So yeah, I think they
A
chose
boy is
wisely.
definitely less weird.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, it is. I guess.
For the
I don't
time,
know.
probably for 91. Yeah.
For 91, definitely. Yeah.
Right.
It probably isn't though, actually. But yeah. But
The younger child.
but she's
Sorry.
great. Yeah. What do you guys think about her?
I mean, I
Go
think
ahead.
she's fine. Like
Yeah.
no problems.
Yeah.
But again, like I don't think she necessarily needed more time in the film. Like,
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Gotcha. You, Ryan?
she's in the sailing scene, which I
Yes.
feel like that's one of the first ones that comes to mind remembering. But I don't know. Yeah, like you said, I don't know if stuff got cut or what,
Yeah.
but like she at least, gives her and Ziggy or Sigmund or
Siggy.
yeah, both kind of serve the story in that like they have their typical frustrations, but they're not too rebellious or anything. Like
Mhm.
you get the sense like this is a fairly comfortable, sane,
Mm-hmm.
happy enough family. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like they're not tearing posters down and smoking
Right.
weed. Like
Right.
you know what I mean? They're like pretty mature for who
Right.
their parents are and stuff. Like,
Right. Right.
yeah, and she portrayed that great. She's was the one with the license,
Right.
and the one who like pissed off her dad. Remember when he offers to drive Bob home, and she's just like, "Oh no, remember you said to park it at the blah blah blah," and
yeah,
she's
that-
just
Yeah.
It feels like she's always kind of, at least when she is in it, she's kind of one step ahead of her dad,
Yeah.
which I like.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good observation. That's a really good
when
observation.
When he's showing them the rifle or the bust, and she's just like, I already said, the rifle, it shows whatever it was, like, can I eat breakfast now? Like, she's kind of over her dad, but still cares about him. And I feel like they portrayed that with what time she had in the movie,
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Cool. Miles Goodman's score. He did a lot of 80s and 90s comedies. He unfortunately died at the age of 46, which is how old I am now, which is very young. I think it's I can't imagine the movie again, like the actors. I can't imagine the movie without the score. It totally sets a tone where it's like, this is okay to laugh at. In fact, we want you to laugh at this, but it's not pandering either. It just keeps, and it starts off kind of synthy and very 80s-esque and very light, but it evolves into something like I was doing earlier, that little da, da, that those little high-pitched vocals, they have a slight twinge of insanity.
Yes.
But it's still funny. It's still funny. You can still laugh at it, but I think that the score really captures Bob's spirit well, but it also does it in a way that makes you, it's like, it's okay to like this guy for the purpose of this movie, because we kind of want you to. We kind of want you to like this guy and laugh along with what's going on here. I think it's a good score. Is it a unique score? I wouldn't go that far, but it just serves the movie very well. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, no, I agree. I like that it's kind of the only music in the movie. There's no like various artists, other soundtrack that exists for it. Yeah, it's all you hear. Like, there's not even, unless I'm missing, I don't think there's not even any point in it where they're listening to something on the radio.
Right.
It's like the only music in it. And I even kind of searched on the internet, is there a What About Bob soundtrack? And it doesn't even look like there is, because there's not much in it.
Yeah.
It's like 3 or 4 original compositions, and like that's it. But yeah, like you said, though, at the beginning with the fish, kind of, it's very playful from the get-go.
Yeah.
And does get kind of 80s synthy at one point with that da 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 da. Yeah. Right. Which, right.
Yeah.
Which at the time you're like, certainly this is what's in the movie, but rewatching, it's kind of like, ugh, it's a little dated, but except for that kind of waltzy da 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 da, like that's still so great. And very, very playful.
When Leo's going mad, that's wonderful. That's a wonderful score.
Dancing on the side of the that still gets better and better. But the score is great. I like that it's pretty minimal.
Me too.
Yeah.
What do you think, Robin?
Yeah, I mean, I think it works really well for what they're trying to do with the film, of make it like a family film. It's so like warm feeling, like, and light, it helps to excuse what the film is actually about, and it's also just like the lighting and like the like tone in like the film color, like is also warm, so it fits well with the soundtrack. Like, you never see anything that's like cold and intimidating. Even like the Insane Asylum or whatever, like even that like is just feels welcoming there. You don't feel threatened there at all,
Right.
Totally.
But yeah, anyway, that's the way I view it,
Yeah.
Totally. We've talked a lot about this before, but favorite scenes. I mean, honestly, there's so many good ones in the movie, and I mean, every scene's got something good about it for the most part. I have a little bit of issue with the ending, but we'll get into that in just a second here. I'm gonna say, I think if I were to choose my 3 favorite scenes, they would be back to back. They would be the dinner scene, Bob and Siggy's sleepover, and then trying to wake up Bob. That whole chunk of the movie is the best stuff in the movie, in my opinion. I think the stuff between Bob and Siggy is probably the best stuff in the movie. It's not the funniest stuff in the movie, but it's like, wow, this is some really good stuff. Like that, the sleepover stuff, the stuff with them on the dock where Bob teaches Siggy how to swim. It's they make the character very the Bob character very multi-dimensional, and it's understandable, especially when seeing the way he bonds with Siggy. It's understandable why people are letting him get away with what he's doing to Richard Dreyfuss's character.
Right.
But yeah, I think the best chunks of the movie involve Siggy. Not necessarily the funniest. I think the funniest moments of the movie involve Richard Dreyfuss reacting to Bob, which is why I think the funniest moment in the movie is, we talked about this at the very beginning, Ryan, is waking up Bob. Is cock-a-doodle-doo, Bob, Bob, Bob. I love it. I love it. And watching that again, I laughed my ass off just like I did when I saw it for the first time. It's funny. It's funny. What are your favorite scenes, Ryan?
That's definitely one of them. Him waking him up. Also, like we said, vice versa. Bob jumping on Richard Dreyfuss, because you hear how much.
Yeah.
Like Richard Dreyfuss is more in pain from him jumping on him than he is from choking.
Oh!
Like, ah! And I'd say definitely the Good Morning America scene where they're filming that, and like Bob kind of just takes over the interview.
Yeah.
And Richard Dreyfuss realizes he's like now sitting in Bob's chair, and Bob's just, raving about him and everything. And like Richard Dreyfuss is just so stunned, and like she asks him something and he just kind of on autopilot gives her the response that he's been practicing, of just like, I'm very proud of its success and gratified by blah, 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 blah. And like, and they just kind of are like, what the fuck is wrong with him? And like by the end, he's calling him Boob instead of Bob, and he's like, Boob, and he's like, no, I don't really want to call him Boob, but the book is like, and he just kind of starts like going, like, you can just tell how insane he's going. Like, that's probably if I had to choose a favorite, it's that, but also him like pushing Bob into the water is another fun, like, because you could tell he's really not trying to. He's just in the back of his brain, just like, get the fuck out of the way, and ends up pushing him in the water. And Bob keeps asking, am I going to die to them?
Am I going to die?
Yeah, those probably. But favorite line is probably him yelling, get out of the car. But he's not, he's just, get out of the blah.
Yeah.
But he's saying, right. But he's saying, get out of the car, even though it's just basically gibberish.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah.
What about you, Robin?
Yeah, I mean, those are all great. The interview scene is hilarious, and I definitely like, that's in my mind, like a memory thing. But also just like the the early on scene of Bill Murray going to his office, like, I mean, that's very memorable to me. Like the whole part that I was talking about before with him, like looking for a specific book and like grabbing his own book. And then like Bill Murray saying baby steps and taking actual baby steps around. Like, but I mean, like, there's other things that it's just like, I enjoy it because it's something that I still think of, like what you're talking about with the interview scene, and even how he has like the tissue paper like on his neck still, or face or whatever, from cutting himself while shaving, those types of things. The screaming scene, like in the town when he first arrives, all that stuff. And then it's funny, like the whole dinner scene. I like that more now because I actually have done the same sort of thing unintentionally. So, long story short, like I was once with Tlisky and Jenna, and we were visiting his her parents. Like it was like some summer, and I had been in New York for a while, like mainly eating out, and like not really having like a nice like good like family breakfast or whatever, and like his mom, like I thought she did a great job cooking, and I actually was going like, so good. Like again, unintentionally, I was just so impressed. And there's Jenna's dad just staring at me, kind of like Richard Dreyfuss, like fuck this guy, you know. And I talked to them later, and they like were all surprised that I was enjoying this breakfast because they're like, her cooking isn't that good. Like,
Yeah.
like,
Eggs and
I don't know, it
toast.
tasted good to me. Yeah, and apparently Jenna's mom would be asking about me at times because I liked her food so much that day. You know?
Yeah.
So anyway, I was in a similar situation doing the same thing as
Right.
Bill Murray. So that's why I like that scene now.
Nice. Nice.
What kills me about that too is like you could tell Richard Dreyfuss is going crazy, but everyone in the family is just like, "Great biscuits, huh, Bob?
Yeah.
More chicken, Bob?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she gets the salad, and he's like, "Can you get rid of that tomato, please?" And
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
like, "Oh, sure, Bob."
Get rid of that tomato. Yes. Oh, I love
But
it.
I did forget to mention something I never noticed till watching it recently is when the crew's coming into film in there, Bob casually tells the camera guy coming in, "Hey, I think it's a fireplace shot."
Yeah.
Like you can tell how dialed in Bob is to everything,
Yeah.
but Richard Dreyfuss is just so just gone basically.
Yeah.
And also the whole, it factors into that like straight person funny person factor of like Richard Dreyfuss telling him, "I don't want you here. You have to leave. Like, leave now." And he's on the porch. And they come out and say, "Hey, we're ready to film." He says, "Oh, I can't. He doesn't want me." And he's like, No. Let's get in there. Let's get in." Like, you know, like that. It's just more elements of Richard Dreyfuss being fucking perfect in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
I feel like what you're saying with that fireman shot or fireplace shot, like that almost seems like that was improvised by Bill Murray, you know, like
right. Oh yeah.
Like what's the whole point of him just spitting that out, you know?
Exactly. I don't like. There's no way they wrote that.
No.
Right,
And there's so
yeah.
many organic moments like that Bill Murray discovers. He's a brilliant. I mean, I can only imagine he's got to be a brilliant improviser. I mean, I don't know.
Big time.
I don't know what watching his movies. I don't know what's improvised or written, but just so the words flow so smoothly out of his voice, and they're so in the moment. I would imagine he improvises frequently, and from what I've read about this, he did improvise a lot. And what about Bob?
Oh, I'm sure like his scene, like where he's like cursing and whatnot, like just sporadically or whatever, like or spontaneously. I mean, like I'm sure that was improvised, like what he was saying, you know.
All right. And okay, so what do you guys think about the ending? Like, that's my only complaint about the movie is it's not bad. It doesn't ruin the movie for me. It just feels kind of indecisive. Like, I guess we'll end it like this. Like it just feels like they didn't really have a good ending in mind. And they kind of just, I think I read years ago, I couldn't find anything to back this up. I think I read in like Premiere or Entertainment Weekly or something back when this came out, when I was in middle school. I think I read that they shot multiple endings, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But that's what the ending feels like. It just feels like an ending that was settled on. And yeah, what do you guys think? What do you think, Ryan?
It doesn't end. It just kind of starts suddenly.
Yeah.
And like I do like the idea of like Bob went on to become wrote a book and everything, but like it does definitely feel like, I don't know, they're just here.
Yeah.
And Dr. Leo Susan, that's kind of funny, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't end. It keeps escalating.
Yeah.
Like I love how it gets like he's literally marrying his sister now.
Yeah.
You know, like that's super funny. Like you hear da 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 da, and she's just so like in love with him and whatnot. Right. But it just stops. It doesn't really end. So I do agree with you on that.
Yeah.
It's fine, but the credits just kind of start rolling.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I just think I don't know how. I don't have some magical ending in my mind. I just think they maybe could have done a little better.
Yeah, same.
What do you think, Robin?
I mean, yeah, I'd be interested to hear like what the alternate endings would be, because I feel like the wedding thing, like, it works for sure. But at the same time, I feel like that's like just adding to like making this a family movie type
Yeah.
of thing, you know,
Yeah.
Right.
like it's almost as if like they had some ending that was maybe more darker, but the producers would have been like, no, 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 we need this to be like
Yeah.
family, like PG or whatever movie. I don't even know if it was PG or PG-13 or whatever, but
Same.
still,
think it's PG. I think it's PG.
Shit.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
say some kind of vile shit when
Maybe,
they're
yeah,
they
that's
do,
true.
but
With the
you know
Tourette
what's
stuff,
interesting
I
is like,
it might be PG-13. It might be PG.
yeah, but I feel like at that time, like people could still like say, you know, bad stuff and it would be rated PG. Like,
Yeah.
go back like into the 80s and there'd be some scenes that would be partially naked and it would still be PG, you know. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I do like the part that now he's become like a psychiatrist or whatever, a psychologist. I like that. I would have just liked to have seen that developed more. Like,
Sure. You see a little moment where the psychiatrist is prescribing Leo something, and then Bob interrupts him, and he's like, "I think this would be a more significant." And the guy's like, "Oh, you're right."
Yeah.
So you see that. I would have kind of liked to have seen that develop just a little more too. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that.
Even like Bob in an office with his book.
Yeah.
And then like, next patient, please, and it's Richard Dreyfuss walks in or something.
Yeah,
that would have been the same. Yeah.
That would have been.
And now it's this cycle of like, now Richard Dreyfuss is going to start driving him insane or something.
Yeah.
But
or like he would be constantly writing the prescription for Richard Dreyfuss, and Richard Dreyfuss would just be out of it the whole time. You know? Something like that, you know?
Yeah. I like that.
Because Richard Dreyfuss tries to kill him, and that doesn't even work.
Right.
It cures him on accident.
It cures him. Him trying to kill him literally cures him. And then he builds a career off of it.
Right.
We've already pretty much said this, but what are your favorite lines? Oh, God. There's so many good ones, and I feel like a lot of them are ad-libbed by Murray. But my favorite lines, I mean, I feel good, I feel great, I feel wonderful. Gimme, I need. I love that. I love Bill Murray's Bobisms, but the lines that get me the most are Richard Dreyfuss and his deliveries. Those are my favorite moments. And my favorite line, I think, and my favorite line delivery is, "It feels right because you're here, and it feels right because you're leaving." I just love the way he says that. And then I of course love, we've already done this, but get out of the car. So those, my favorite moments are Richard Dreyfuss just totally losing his shit. And I think you've already said it's get out of the car for you, Ryan.
I did. I made a note of it in my little bullshit thing here.
Yeah. Did you have any other lines that you like, or?
As of rewatching it, when he tells him, when Bill Murray says, "Hey, I think it's a fireplace." I think it's a fireplace shot.
Yeah.
Him helping out the crew.
Yeah.
I don't know why that. I just had never noticed that. Before.
Yeah.
And I've seen it a fair amount of times.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What about you, Robin?
I don't know if I have any in particular, but like, I love like all of those like Bill Murray lines when he first arrives in the town, and then like just him like saying baby steps, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's not like anything in particular. I think they both have like great lines throughout it, you know.
Yeah.
The car scene, like get out of the car, you know, like take a vacation from your problems or whatever, you know.
Vacation from my problems. You bet I will. Yeah.
Oh, it's not a line, but it's a little moment where he's watching Bob leaves and Bob turns around and then spots him in the.
Oh yeah. Like, oh my God. It just shows like how like disturbing his character is. The fact that he like, you know, turns around and is still looking at him. You know? Yeah.
Yeah. I love that stuff. And last topic to discuss is, are Leo and Bob sympathetic? I think, like I said when I introduced this, I had a lot of sympathy for Bob as a kid. Seeing him through adult eyes, yes, I have sympathy for him. Yes, he's a sympathetic character, but I feel sorrier for Leo. I think Leo is more sympathetic despite how unlikable he is, because he's literally being driven insane by this character who everybody is supporting but him. And he has my sympathies for that.
Yeah.
But Bob is a lonely, mentally ill person. He has my sympathies. It's just I think they're both sympathetic. What do you think, Ryan?
I agree. Yeah, like, but he's Richard Dreyfuss is pretty unlikable from the get-go. Yeah. I realized watching it. Like, he's, talking and just, blah, 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 when you're famous, haha. Yeah. And then, like, bill him $29.95 for this book that he didn't ask for. Yeah. And they just set him up to be pretty unlikable. He's got an office it's just very villain-like. The optics of it are very like he overlooks this city and this, high tower, basically.
That's a good observation, yes.
Yeah, he's got the secretary that he, talks. It's just very villain-like from the get-go. But he is sympathetic because anyone would call the police. Yeah. Like almost immediately. Yeah. But he's tolerating it for as long as he can and then finally snaps. Yeah. And so, he is sympathetic. They're both very sympathetic, but I agree with you that you do sympathize for him more with age now. Yeah. Like the older you get, the more bullshit you have to put up with. Yeah. So all the bullshit we've been putting up, and now we're in our 40s. It's like how can he stand this? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and everyone is against him basically.
It would drive me nuts if I were in his position. I can understand why his character goes nuts. It would drive me and I've been somewhat in that position to a degree, or at least I felt like I have been, where it's like I felt like a person's crazy and everybody just loves that person. So and I'm just like, what? Yes. So I
have been in that as well.
I've been there, and it's an infuriating it's an infuriating feeling. So I can identify, as unlikable as he is, I identify with Richard Dreyfuss.
Same.
So, yeah. What about you, Robin?
Well, I actually just thought of this, like, talking about how Leo is, like, basically a villain. It made me think of, like, how, in his own office, he has, like, the portrait sculpture on his, like, wall or whatever, or table, and then like he puts that up in the mantle, like in his home, like for the interview. But what I noticed when I watched it is, like, there's the explosion in the house, and like the head lands right in front of them in the explosion as a result, and that just reminded me of The Burbs when that house explodes, where like the spike comes up, goes straight down to the police car.
That never occurred to me. The two movies the three of us have talked about on this all end with the lead character's house exploding. Wow.
Is that like a common thing, like in movies where like there's the house exploding and something shoots up the air and then lands right in front of the characters? Like, it seems like it is, based on the fact that it's in early 90s movies,
Yeah.
It has to be, yeah. I feel like it's in a lot more. I just can't remember off the top.
It seems like kind of familiar to me too. I know it happens in What About Bob? What's the other one that it happens in?
I can't remember.
The Burbs.
Does it happen in The Burbs?
Yeah.
Something falls at somebody's feet?
Well, the spike.
The spike on the car. Yeah. The spike on the car. Yes. Right. Yes. That's actually a good point. That's a good observation. I didn't think of that.
Yeah. Yeah. As for sympathy, like, believe me, like, growing older, like, Leo, I'm like, oh my God, like the tension in that. But like at the same time, because of like the type of film it is, that it's this comedy like that, I don't really feel it for either of them. If this was like a more tense comedy, like I think of like something Ricky Gervais would have directed, like my hands would be like sweating, my palms would be sweating, and it'd be like, oh God, just stop, stop.
Yeah. It could have been more. this movie is it's family friendly, uncomfortable comedy, and
Right.
that's kind of what's cool about it. Is it could have been in the hands of another director. It could have been really dark and edgy. It could have been
Yeah.
Right. Right.
really dark and edgy, and like really, yeah. But in Frank Oz's hands and in the producer's hands, it it's uncomfortable. It's hard to watch at times, but there's it I don't know. There's just something about it that it's a fun movie to watch, despite how
Yeah.
uncomfortable it is. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, yeah. All right, all right. Well, thank you very much for listening, everybody. This has been fun.